Okay, so welcome to CVSP 205, course that will be delivered under incredible circumstances. Primarily the fact that I am more than 1,000 miles away from you guys, but nonetheless, we will make this work, inshallah. So let me start off by telling you what I want you to expect from this course and what exactly my objective behind this course is. So when you read ancient and medieval civilizations, the first thing that might come up to mind is, okay, boring, has to do with history. Why is this coming up? It has to do with history, has to do with a bunch of ancient people or classical texts that I will probably never read again in my life and so forth. But that is not what this course is about. It is actually anything but historical, and it is anything but dealing with classical and irrelevant figures from history and whatnot. So one of the misconceptions is that the course is all about the books and the texts. It's the other way around. The book is the course is not about the books that we will read. It is about the ideas that the book are trying to address, the realities that the books are trying to address. So the course is actually idea-centric and not book-centric. The primary concern are the ideas and the themes, and then the books merely serve as a window into how a particular civilization or how a particular thinker try to answer and to think about these themes. So what are these themes? Okay, the human condition. Now, what does that even mean? When you talk about the human condition, right? That might sound a bit abstract. So the best way to think about it is like this, okay? Especially if you're not a philosophy major and you're worried about, oh, human condition, existence, anxiety, like I have no background knowledge in that. Don't worry. What do we mean by human condition? Okay, let's take a step back. If you're a biology major, okay, the object of your study is the human body, right? The physiological body. If you are an engineer, let's say an industrial engineer or an architect, there's a particular subject matter, right? Which is, well, first and foremost, of course, there are certain laws, right? Laws of physics. And then there are certain engineering and mathematical axioms and so forth, right? If you are a process engineer, there might be certain materials that are the subject and the object of your thought. If you're a politics major, then the subject of your study is what? Politics, the political space, and so forth and so forth and so forth. Or business, you're thinking about the market, you're thinking about the consumer and so forth. But there is something, right? There is a theme that is common to all of these majors, and that is common to all of these subjects. So there is something that underlies the market and the consumer, our physiological bodies, our psychology, and man's use of physical object and material object, and the political space or the economic space. What is it that underlies all of these different themes, subjects? It is quite simply the human condition. At the end of the day, we are all human. Therefore, we all have certain experiences that are common to all men and women. And these experiences pervade all of these different spaces, all of these different subjects. So the question of the human condition, and in the second lecture, I'm going to explain in detail. There will be a whole lecture just on what do I mean by the human condition. But for now, what you need to know is that when we talk about anxiety, existence, when we talk about depth, and finitude, which basically means the limitations of our limitations, right? When you talk about the question of truth, purpose, action, heroism, faith, reason, philosophy, and so forth, or justice, these are not topics that are exclusive to the philosophy major, nor are they exclusive to the politics major or the literature major and so forth. They are questions that pervade our existence on a day-to-day basis, right? So the question is not whether or not these themes are there in our lives. They are. The only question is whether or not we choose to ignore them or to forget them or to defer them for a particular period of time. So what we want to engage with in this course are these questions, right, which we all experience, and then try to look at how we can reflect and think about them, in addition to how do some of these medieval and ancient thinkers try to engage with them, right? So the books that we're going to look at, of course, we're not gonna. Some of the books we're only going to deal with excerpts from each book. So you have the Epic of Gilgamesh, or Gilgamesh. You have the Odyssey of Homer. You have Oedipus the King. You have Plato's Republic, Confessions of Saint Augustine, Deliverance from Error by Imam al-Ghazali, The Decisive Treatise by Ibn Rushd, and Dante's Inferno. Each text we will introduce to you. We will talk about the major theme, and then we will also, to kind of try to make it concrete and try to make it as relevant as possible, relate it to a contemporary issue or a contemporary show, movie, book, event, and so forth. So then, what do you need to succeed in this course? Now, what you do not need is previous information, okay, or background information or knowledge on any of the topics that we discussed, or any of the topics I just mentioned. As a matter of fact, usually my biology and chem and engineering majors actually do better in this course than some of my philosophy majors and the politics majors and so forth. So you need no background information on how to, in order to succeed in this course. Keep in mind that we will be going through each of the texts and each of the topics step by step. We will start from zero, and we will walk you through each topic and each text, inshallah. So what do you need for this course? Well, luckily it's something that you already possess, which is critical thinking. What does critical thinking mean? It is your ability to question something and your ability to take something apart and to think about it independently. This doesn't mean that you cannot do research or that you must come up with something novel or original. It simply means that you have to be bold enough to be able to think and reflect about the topic. And as I said, this is something that we already all have the power and the capacity to do. Now, in the lectures that you will receive, each lecture is really an example of myself trying to think critically about a particular theme. And in each lecture, I will give you guys questions, right, that allow you to think critically about a theme or about a text. So we're going to get there, don't worry. As it says in the syllabus, critical thinking also means being able to listen to and recall certain features or themes within an academic lecture. Okay, so the lectures that I will be sending you every Tuesday and Thursday, you should be able to understand what are the themes that I am talking about, although this will not be difficult because they will simply be the title of each lecture, right? The themes and the topics, they will be spelled out basically. Two, being able to identify the basic elements of a text. So reading, for example, the Epic of Gilgamesh and trying to come out with, or trying to understand, okay, what are the main elements? What is the main theme that the author is trying to get at, or trying to explain his opinion on, his or her opinion on? So is it death? Is it the idea of purpose and truth? Is it faith? Is it reason? And so forth. To formulate questions about a lecture and a text. And this again is not difficult, because as humans, we are curious beings, and by nature we ask questions. The only thing preventing you from doing so is turning off your critical thinking. To ground one's argument in a text. So this is basically more about structure, right? This means that you're not just writing purely from your head or free writing, but when you write, for example, when you're writing your reading responses, what you're doing is you are engaging with the text, or you are engaging with the lecture. What this means is that you are treating the text or the lectures as a conversation, okay? As a conversation. So when you're watching the lecture or when you're reading the text, imagine that you are in a conversation, okay, with the other. You are not taking the text or the lecture to be this absolute basis for knowledge and information. You are in a conversation. And naturally, when you are in a conversation, you need to respond to what the conversee is saying, right? To what the other person is saying. You need to be aware of what he is saying, he or she is saying, and you need to ask questions, right? So thinking of each lecture and a conversation and the text as a conversation will help you to formulate questions and to ground your arguments, to ground your responses in the text. And lastly, and this is my favorite part, is to relate the text to one's contemporary life or world. And this is not difficult, because these are not obsolete themes and topics, right? These are topics that still affect us on a day-to-day basis. If not, they define our lives. So it is not difficult to find these themes everywhere, even on Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, and we'll see examples of that, right? So what is the class format? Okay, what are you required to do, and what can you expect? So of course, there is the common lectures on Monday. The common lectures are at 12 p.m. and you would receive an email every time there is a common lecture. Second, there will be 2 weekly YouTube lectures or presentations. Each one will be uploaded on Tuesday and the other will be uploaded on Thursday. And they will each be uploaded before 8 a.m. The second thing that you would have to know, third, is that there will be these lectures, the link for these lectures will be emailed to you, and they will also be posted on Moodle. I will also have on Moodle class resources, meaning notes and on my own personal notes on the lecture, right? So before I give the lecture, obviously I prepare my own notes, right? So I would post those notes for you. And I will also give you resources on how to write responses and how to write your midterm and all that fun stuff. And then lastly, we will have a discussion board, but that will be the link for that, and that will be to be announced, right? So don't worry about that right now. Okay, just worry about the Tuesday and Thursday lectures. Now, the fun part is here. Okay, so what is the grading format or the grading structure for this course? So 40% of your grade is based on the reflection papers. 30% is on one midterm essay that you will have to write about a single theme in the course. So purpose, truth, faith, free will, heroism, and so forth. Of course, we will get there in due time, and we will have a whole module on how to write this paper. And then the final exam where you choose more than one theme and then you engage with them critically. And of course, we will get to that. So let's begin with the first one, right, which is the reflection paper. Now, the reflection paper, it is 40% of your grade, and it is going to sound overwhelming, but it is actually your best friend in this course. The reflection paper is basically a 2 to 3 page response. This is the reflection paper, a 2 to 3 page response that is written after each lecture. Okay, so there might be around, let's say, 10 lectures. Okay, or 10. Sorry, there are 8 texts, right? There are 2 lectures on each. Let's say 2 to 3 lectures on each. So every time we finish one text, right, you would already have, let's say, 2 to 3 hours of videos or lectures on that topic. So the reading response, there are 8 reading responses, right? Each one is a reflection on the text and on the lectures. So what this does is it shows me that you have listened to each lecture, right? That you have read the text and that you have reflected on them. So it is 2 to 3 pages. The format is as follows: your name, title, and section on the top. Most students forget to put their name, title, and section, and this becomes cumbersome, because then I have to go back through your email, because I print these, right? So I'd have to go back and check who sent me this essay and so forth. So make sure you start off with your name, section, and title. Title would be, for example, Reflections on Epic of Gilgamesh, Reflections on Odyssey of Homer. Font size 12 times New Roman, double spaced. Now the structure is you begin with a summary of the lectures. Okay, a summary of the lectures. A summary means that you talk about, okay, what are the key themes that the instructor, i.e. myself, the instructor discussed in, let's say, his 2 to 3 lectures on the Epic of Gilgamesh. So with Epic of Gilgamesh, for example, we're going to talk about 3 things. We're going to talk about anxiety. We're going to talk about death. And we're going to talk about finitude, which means the limitations of man and the problems that come with our own limitations, right? So you're going to be like, okay, the instructor, right, the lecture discussed these 3 themes, right, in relation to the Epic of Gilgamesh. This is what was briefly said about those 3 themes. And then you summarize briefly the text, right, in relation to those themes. So because we're going to be talking about, let's say, death, finitude, and anxiety, you would discuss the parts of the text that pertain to those 3 themes, right? It's not the summary of the whole text. And then second, you give me your own reflections on the lecture and on the text, right? And this will be made easy because I will be giving you questions in each of the lectures, right? What do you think about this, or what are your reflections on this topic, and so forth. And third is your conclusion. So the conclusion can be where you pose open-ended questions, where you summarize the paper, or basically you conclude it as you see fit. So again, there are 8 books. So there will be 8 reflection papers. Each is 2 to 3 pages, 2 pages minimum. The reflection paper is a summary of the lectures and a summary of the text, your reflections on the text and on the lectures, and then a conclusion. Now, given that you will already have a text in your hands, and you will also have 2 to 3 hours of lectures at your hands and at your disposal, writing a 2 to 3 page paper or essay, reflection paper, will not be difficult. If anything, the only difficult thing will be how do you keep it to 2 to 3 pages and not longer. And given that it is 40% of your grade, this is the perfect opportunity for you to leverage and to use these papers as a way to boost your grade. Okay, so that brings us to the end of class and administrative issues, the nitty-gritty stuff. On Thursday, you will receive the first lecture about an introduction to the idea of the human condition. What do I mean by the human condition? And then, the sub-themes that we had listed here. So I will briefly introduce you to each one of these themes, basically just to kind of give you a framework and a mental map of where we are going in the course. And then on Tuesday, the following Tuesday, we will begin with the Epic of Gilgamesh. So you are required to read the Epic of Gilgamesh for next week, the whole text. And it is actually quite a short book, and it is actually a very entertaining book. So you can enjoy that. Okay? See you guys virtually see you guys on Thursday.